Hello.
Hello,
Hi,
hello.
everybody.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome.
Welcome to the VoiceIt show. This is 33rd episode, and Ray is here already. Wow, what a
Anders,
pleasure.
hi.
Hello, everyone in the chat. Oh, look at you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in this week as well. And what a pleasure today, and what an honor today. We have a very special guest, and well, you can see the joy on my face. Gosh damn it. But before that, if you haven't yet subscribed to our channel, so please go ahead and hit the subscribe button Funky is pointing to.
Yeah,
And
right
we
there.
want to give a special shout out to the patrons of the What's It Show, Funky.
Yes, a huge thank you to Eden Gorak, Chris Vickery, Shelley O'Neill, and of course, Anders Lindholm. Thank you so much, guys.
Awesome. And to begin with, today it's a special day because we have a special guest. Funky, I'm stealing your lines.
Go, go on.
So, today we have with us a musical extraordinaire and award winning producer, artist, guitar player from the Silicon Valley of India, that is Bangalore. He is now based in Seattle. He is the owner, founder of Verge Studios, Mr. George Verghese. Well, he did his higher education in computer science from the University of Southern California. George began his musical journey from young age. He formed his own band called Crystals and went on to form another band called Mixed Fruit Jam with his close friends. And Mixed Fruit Jam was a huge success here. It also won the second prize at the national reality TV competition in India called ZTV Saregama.
Yes, that's right. And George also won the award for Best Lead Guitarist in the national competitions. His own self
Right,
produced album called Back in Time was in the ballots for Grammy Awards and has won many accolades. George has performed with musicians like Larry Mitchell, Tony McAlpine, and at a young age, he also performed in front of 28,000 people with Bryan Adams. In 2013, he started working at Robert Lang Studio in Seattle, where he worked with world-class professionals and finally started his own studio called Verge Studios. And currently, he also associated with Grieve the Astronaut Band as the audio engineer. So we are very honored to have him on the show. So please welcome George Verghese.
woohoo!
Welcome.
Hey, hi, good to meet you, Kanak and Funky.
Nice to
Thank you
meet you
so
too.
much. Welcome to the Voice It Show.
It's great to
And
be
thank you
here.
so much for joining us today. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. And such a pleasure to meet you. And it feels so great. I think I feel like at home, even though I am at home, but I feel like at home today.
Likewise, I don't know. I feel like I've known, even though we've just met, I feel like I've known you all forever.
No.
Yeah. So, how's it going? Tell us what's happening with you and how was the past year and what's new?
Right now, just like you mentioned, I Verge Studios. That's been my main focus for the last 3 years. Most people know me as a guitar player,
Yeah,
performing shows. That's my number one passion that I always love doing. But about 3 years ago, I
right.
started Verge Studios, and I always kept saying, next year I'll get back to playing guitar like with full focus. But it's been 3 years, and loving every minute of the studio because I get to do both. And
Right.
I did think that last year I would get back on the stage, but COVID came along, so I'm still on the virtual stage
True.
to some degree. But looking forward to
And
getting back and playing soon.
true.
Nice.
That's right. And you grew up in a musical family, right? Your mom, she's also a musician.
Yes.
an eighth grade graduate from the Trinity College of Music, and your
Yes.
dad, like me, is an ardent lover of So, how was it, growing up? And I grew up in a musical family, and what would you listen to back then? And was it more of like, would you listen to what your parents would listen to?
Yeah, so definitely my mom is a big influence in my life. She used to play the piano back then, and I would listen to her. And I did not learn any piano back then, but I would just listen and assimilate that music. My dad used to love music and bring records back in the day. He went to Russia once and brought a bunch of these classical records like Tchaikovsky and Mozart. So that was playing a lot in my home. And there was always music. There was always
Wow.
music playing, but I never got to study anything or
Hmm.
try any instrument till I was 12. But I would just listen to a lot of music. Um, and
Right.
Now my mom's actually teaching, and she's just crossed 80 years old. She started after I
Wow.
left home in 2003.
Wow.
She started her career, and now 25 years later, she's got
Wow.
students, and she's still teaching after the age of 80. So I'm very inspired by her, and uh, and learned a
Wow.
lot from her.
That's amazing.
That is
Impressive. Yeah.
absolutely commendable. And congratulations to your mom on that.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
So
Uh,
I'm gonna ask you a bit about instruments. So I read somewhere that you taught yourself how to play the guitar and the other instruments that you play. So did you do all the work by yourself, or did you have anybody else to help you out and teach you?
Yes, so actually, I owe a lot of my guitar playing to Robert from India. He used to work at Reynolds,
mhm.
Robert Xavier, and I remember it was 92 when I went to him. It was 1992, I believe, in that range. And he showed me all the foundations of chords and rhythms. I have a little book that I would have, and he would make me write all the songs with the chords on top of it, and I would have stickers, and that book was my life. But here, tying back to Kanak's question, he's the one who introduced me to all of the music that I listen to today. Because back then, like I said, my dad brought me
Ah,
classical music. It was Paul Moriarty, and it was all of that, Boney M, Carpenters. But when I met Robert, he gave me this tape, and on that tape was a bunch of
right.
songs which I had no idea who was playing them, but I just brought it home and said, work it out. And so I worked out a lot of that music just on a cassette player and an acoustic guitar, because I didn't have an electric guitar for many, many years. And later on, I found out that those bands were Deep Purple and Iron Maiden and Van Halen and Led Zeppelin and things which
Right.
I didn't know who they were. I just knew that I was playing music that I loved. But later on, I found out who those bands were, and so that was my start. So
True.
Robert was a big influence. But then after about a year of studying with him, I started picking up. I love playing solos, the lead guitar. So I started listening to cassettes and working out leads, whether it was Creedence Clearwater Revival or bands from back then which we used to listen to. But the
Right.
main learning started in '96 when I was introduced to Joe Satriani. And since then, my world of
Ah,
lead guitar changed. So he's been a big influence.
right.
Yeah, that's amazing. And
That's
to continue with the instrument question, can you tell us how many instruments can you play and which?
Yeah, so that ties down to actually in '94 when I joined. It was back then. Um, I wanted to start a band. Till then I was playing by myself, just practicing and learning. But nobody around me. There was no internet to find people, and in the school, it was only choirs back then. There
true.
was no band. The music room just had one drum set, which was kind of half broken down, and pianos. There were pianos everywhere because the school was all about choir. So I said, the only way I could start a band is to learn the instruments. So I took that drum set and started playing around in it and figured out a few beats. Creedence Clearwater Revival was one of the first songs we used to play, or maybe La Bamba, those kind of simple songs. And
Right.
then the piano was the next thing that I wanted to learn, but I didn't have access. I didn't own any instrument except an acoustic guitar. So there was a there was a piano in the school hall, the music hall, but had a lock
Mhm.
on it. So I would go there every lunch break and
Gosh.
remove all the parts of the piano so that I could get access to the keys. And that's how I learned piano, just playing on
Wow.
those little keys every lunch break for 2 years. So
Wow.
to answer the question, I dabbled with drums and piano. I don't call myself a drummer or a piano player. I'm more a guitar player, but I'm comfortable on those instruments. Yeah.
Nice.
Awesome.
And Raymond also, Kanak, can you read the question? Can you read
Hey,
the
Ray.
comment?
Yeah. Ray hit
Where
his
is
George
my
can stride
ukulele?
on a ukulele. Wow.
Ray, that's not true, but I found the ukulele really hard to play. And after Crystal, my daughter, 6-year-old, started playing it, I said, I better learn this thing because she's gonna learn one instrument more than me. Just kidding.
Yeah.
But
Gosh.
Uh,
I did create a little song for her that I play to her almost every night before she sleeps. So, and she loves that song. So that's a little ukulele piece that I play.
yeah, that's very nice.
Whoa.
And
Awesome.
earlier backstage, you were showing us a bit of your studio. So I saw a bass as well. So do you play a bass?
I'm again, I play the bass because I think when instruments are around you for 25 to 30 years, you don't have a choice. But I don't call myself a bass
Yeah.
player because there are so many good musicians out there who play way better than me, and I've put so much time and effort into it. But yes, I definitely can play the bass, and most of the recordings I work with that artists, for sake of time and cost, I play the bass. But I always tell them, if you want a better bass line, call a bass player. And
Yeah.
most of them, quite often, it's either or. But yeah, I do love playing the bass. I think the bass is an amazing instrument. And I think I remember, Funky, you're going to start playing the bass too, right? You're going to pick up your
Well,
guitar.
She
well,
got a bass
actually,
You
yesterday.
got it?
yeah, I got a bass.
I remember you said you were going to buy. You hadn't yet decided which one. Oh, which one did you get?
It's
An
a
Ibanez?
Harley Benton bass. I don't know which exactly, but I have to figure that out. But
Wow.
it's a nice bass. I'm finally
I remember
starting
you
out.
sold your guitars to buy this. You sold another guitar
Yes,
to buy this. Yeah,
yes.
that's so cool.
I sold a classical guitar to buy this one, and I saved a bit of money for it as well. So finally,
My
it's
God.
here. I can start my bass journey. So
I
yeah.
can't wait to hear what you do with it.
Well, thank you. I can't wait either.
True.
So yeah, there's that.
Nice, congratulations.
Yeah, that's
Thank
That
you.
fun
looks great.
stuff happening with Funky.
Yeah, that's what's happening with me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And when George said that, he learned stuff on acoustic guitar and didn't have an electric guitar for a long time, I guess that's every typical Indian guitarist journey, because most of us learn on an acoustic guitar, because I learned on an acoustic guitar as well. And then later on, when you're able to play on an acoustic, we switch to an electric guitar.
Electric.
But
I feel that there's some
yeah,
downsides to that in terms of technique, which I learned that
exactly.
I had some bad technique in the beginning, which I still have sometimes and struggle to get over it. Because especially my guitar was, I don't know if you know Reynolds, but it was one of those 300 rupee, like $2-3 guitars
True.
back then. The
I
action was
know.
super high and it had only that much of a neck to play on, and I was going to play Joe Satriani summer song on that. So I would actually have to work out
Yeah,
the song on the lower octave, and then go on stage,
true.
borrow a guitar, and then play it without ever having practiced it on the higher scale. So
God,
that was my life.
exactly.
Wow.
That's a whole new experience, because when you switch from acoustic to electric, it's like sometimes you feel electric guitar is playing without even touching it. Like, whoa, what is this?
I,
It's
I
very sensitive and whatnot. So yeah.
But I appreciate all those guitar players who would lend me their guitars just because they have to go on after me. But they would say, "Yeah, go ahead and use my
Wow.
guitar." So I would have never touched that guitar before, but it was quite an experience back then. And I craved a guitar, I craved an electric guitar. And the journey to get an electric guitar was
Man.
7 years. And I
Yeah.
kept telling my dad, like, an electric guitar costs whatever, say 5,000 rupees, whatever it was. It was out of the way for all of us back then. And then he said, okay, at one time we'll buy it for you. And then I kept waiting and waiting. Finally, from 5, it went to 10. From 10, it went to 20, 20. But I found this guitar, which I wanted to cost 40. It was like 8 times more expensive. And it was like I
True.
just waited and waited for that guitar. And 7 years later, '96, it was in Feb 8th. That guitar came all the way
Correct.
from Washington, D.C. to Bombay to Bangalore. I waited like a year for it to reach my house after buying
Wow.
it. And
Wow.
opening that
Yeah,
for the
yeah,
first,
yeah.
it had a lock. I opened it and the smell and everything was that guitar still with me, my pride and joy.
True. That's a magical experience, actually. Yeah, and that's true. In those times, you had to get it from somewhere else
Yeah.
and import it, basically.
Yep. I
Nowadays,
saw
there
it in a
are stores in
magazine.
India.
I
Oh,
saw it in a
yeah. Wow.
magazine. It was it's a Ibanez 540S
Yeah, yeah,
STDs,
yeah.
and I wrote a handwritten letter to my aunt in DC, and she went to the shop, picked it up, and then 1 year later, when she was planning a trip to Bombay, or Mumbai, she flew in, and then the guitar sat there for another 6 months, and then another aunt had to bring it over.
Wow.
So
Wow.
quite a story, but
Yeah.
it's been 25 years with that guitar and
Wow, yeah.
over 500 shows with the guitar.
Nice.
How
Very
cool
nice.
is that? Guitar has its own journey too.
Yeah. Yes.
So, that's it. So, how was it performing in front of 28,000 of audience in India with
I remember
opening
that
up
like
for
as though
Brian
it was
Adams,
yesterday. Yeah, I
right?
remember that like as though it was just like recent because honestly, that was the only opportunity I got to play for such a big audience. So, but the truth is that it was the truth is it was opening for Brian Adams, playing with an amazing artist named Raghu Dixit, who invited me to perform with
Yeah.
him. The main thing I remember from that day was the sound of the audience. I still remember we get on that
Ah,
stage, my hands were trembling because you get like 10 minutes on stage because it's not like a long opening act. And you got I
true.
think it was 2 songs, and I'm like, you got this is it, and this is the only time you get to do it. This was my
Oh, something happened.
Oh, okay. He'll be back.
Yeah. In the meanwhile, we can say hi. If okay.
Maybe George can sign out and sign back in once again. Okay,
oh, I'm
here he
back in.
is.
Welcome
Sorry.
Yeah,
back.
yeah, he's back.
That's
Thank you,
okay.
Welcome
thank
back
you.
to the part two of George Verghese.
Yeah,
No,
but I was saying
please
the main thing I remember
continue.
was
Yeah,
the sound of the audience. It was really loud, and I envy all the bands that get to perform in such big audiences. And the interesting thing is why I say that it never was the same was because I came to the US. Uh, audience sizes
Mhm.
in India, I think the audience sizes were by default big. I think average we would have
True,
4 to 5,000 people at a show, and it was so easy
exactly.
that we would play 3 or 4 shows a month. But once I came here, I had to start all over again and from scratch. And I would have 5 people in the audience back then, and half of them would be friends and family. So, but it's been a long journey
Right.
since the last 10 years.
And what a fantastic journey, actually. So, as a studio owner now and producer, and you also do the videography for so many bands and whatnot. And in fact, there's a session happening right after this interview. So, how is your typical day at work, and uh, what are your responsibilities at the studio, and when do you check in, check out, how it goes?
Yeah, so the studio actually, fortunately, is in the basement of my own home. So COVID really didn't make a
Ah,
difference in terms of my work because I was continuing to stay at home. But
true.
in terms of my typical day would be what I really love about this current phase or the last 3 years is that I get to work with so many different people and so many different styles of music. Like like I think tomorrow we're working with Raymond, and yesterday I was working with the Indian
Absolutely.
classical singer with working on Hindustani music, and sometimes it goes from anything from children's artists to choirs in San Diego, uh, working remotely. So the day is could switch between any style of music.
Kishore Kumar.
I did one
True.
recently for Vibhu. Yes, ranges from such a range of music, and so every morning I come in and
True.
I have a little post-it on my desktop, which says these are all the projects, active projects. I'm going to pick three of them, three audio and three video, and try to get through it through the day. But I also have to
Wow.
intersperse that with live artists coming into the studio. So typically my day
Right.
would be editing, either mixing audio or editing video between 10 and 3. And then from 3 onwards,
Wow.
it's people come in and we record, or sometimes it's drums, sometimes it's just vocals. Each day
Right.
is so different and so unique.
Nice.
Absolutely. And
Well,
yeah, go ahead. Cool.
so I think now is the time, to ask you the question. So as we already know, Raymond, our very good friend Raymond Hayden, was the one who introduced you to us. So can you tell us
Mm-hmm.
when and how did you meet him? How did that friendship
Hey.
start?
Yeah, Raymond, we met actually 3 years ago, and it was through a mutual contact who brought with Raymond came over to. Actually, I was just starting the opening the studio to the public, and I was trying to figure out what was the best strategy. How do I start? Where do I begin? And so
Right.
Raymond came over to my place, and we all met for the first time. And right off the bat, I knew that there was some. It's more than anything else. There was no conversation that had. It was just the energy, and I just felt this is someone I could. I'm so comfortable with, and that I feel the same. Like even 3 years later, it's like you feel like you know them forever. That kind of energy
Yes.
that I had, and ever since then, Raymond's been. If I ever had a problem, I like a question, I've just called Raymond. Hey, this is what's going on. What do I need to do? And he'd say, hey, let's meet up for lunch, or after the show, just come and hang out after the show. Let's talk about it. And so I always had him as a
True.
checkpoint. Like this is what's going wrong, or this is what's really going good. And Raymond always had that faith and trust in me that I was on the right path. And I need people like that in my life to give me that positive influence. Raymond has come and performed
True.
a couple of times in the past in the studio and done interviews and always been uh, encouraging me and also introducing me to so many people that have helped me make part of this course. And so I always call him my mentor and friend, and I'm so grateful for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And he is the same to us too, and probably everyone in his life. And it was
Yes.
such an honor to have him as a guest on our show as well. And truly, thank you first of
Yeah,
all to Mr.
I
Ray, who is
watched
watching
that.
right now.
Yes, thank you.
And
Hey
I
Ray,
have to ask, GTA members, band members are in the chat. I see Kalisa is there, Ray is there. So I have to,
Kalissa.
who
Yeah, I
is
saw
the
Kalissa.
most
Hi
fun
Kalissa.
character? Who is the most fun character from Grieve the Astronaut?
Great astronaut. I know Ray and Jessica and Kalissa the most. I mean, I think, and the others I've met, like Sid and Eddie. I met once.
Oh, cool.
Sidka has been. I've been here multiple times. But did you say the funny or the most? Did you say funny? Did you ask?
Cool.
What's the
You can
question? Who
say,
was the
yeah,
most
yeah,
fun?
funny. We'll go with
Yeah, I
funny.
mean, I
Yeah.
think Ray is always cracking everyone up with his, especially after every song, he starts playing that cartoonish kind of piano thingy, and he's always makes things so lighthearted and very, very clear trajectory. So even though he's doing something so serious and so meticulous and so uh, an art that's so perfect, he's making sure that the spirit around him is always jovial and fun, and that's special. So he is the
Yeah.
funniest, but also very focused and knows what he's doing.
Yeah, that's very true. I
True.
think I
Oh,
think Raymond is the funniest and the cheeriest person in every single group he's in, or group of friends or
Yes,
band. He's just very amazing person, amazing guy, amazing friend as well.
yeah. But he
So
does it in a way where he keeps the thing going. Yeah.
yeah,
absolutely.
and I'm gonna ask you a question. Only Kanak will probably understand the answer to. But what is your favorite Indian dish?
Oh, you know what? When I, it's so strange. I was
Mm.
coming back from the school to the thing, and I literally assumed you were going to ask me that question. I was
Really?
trying to think of what are the questions they could ask me. I'm like, and I, you know what the answer that I was thinking, what would my favorite Indian dish would be? But it's actually the tandoori. So I like a lot of the grilled chicken and grilled lamb and grilled
Wow.
prawns. So that's something I really love because you can't go wrong with that. And that's one of my favorite
Uh-huh.
dishes.
Yeah, Raymond is saying butter chicken.
Butter chicken, yes,
So
that's Crystal's
cool.
favorite too. It's become my new favorite because we get to share it a lot. Butter chicken
Uh,
is yum, super yum.
yeah.
That's fun.
Here's
Awesome.
another
Awesome.
India-related question. So, what are the Indian musical
Cool.
elements that you have brought to the US with you?
Uh, Honestly, the guitar and Joe Satriani has been my influence. Everyone associates me a lot with rock music, and I've played everything up from rock to metal to all of that. And but back in the day, especially in India,
True.
there were a lot of Indian cultural events, like cultural shows, contests that I would perform with, especially the one you mentioned, the Saregama, where for I believe it was
Yeah.
2 months, if not more, that my band Next to Jam, we just shut down all Western music and just focused on about 20 or 30 Indian songs. So that helped me. So
Right.
performing a lot with in the Indian
True.
cultural events gave me a lot of that influences that I wanted to make sure was in my latest album. So in Back in Time, I have tabla and some flute as much as I could back then, given I had limited resources. I had some of those influences in there, and my next album I hope to
Right.
have a lot more. But yeah, so mostly from performing and playing. But again, my go-to when I'm on stage is rock because of my strong love for the electric guitar and music like Satriani.
Right.
But I love to incorporate tabla and flute
Right.
into that, although I've never played any of those instruments, so I can't bring that in personally. But
Yeah,
yeah,
True.
that's very
And
nice.
and back and Back in Time is the great album for that. The musical versatility of that album is so fantastic, and no doubt it has
oh,
won
thank you.
so many accolades and awards all over. And would you like to talk to us about this album? And because Back in Time, was it going back in time for real?
It was exactly that in terms in two ways actually. It was a kind of I don't know if it's a pun, but playing with the words, wherein I left India in 2003, and so I had the band Next to Jam. We
Hmm.
played for about 7 years, and so a lot of my music influences and foundation was there back before
Right.
2003. And then I came to the US in 2003 and kind of had to learn a guitar because I came with just one guitar and two bags, and so there was no amps, no pedals, nothing. And
True.
so for about 2 years, it was just studying, trying to figure out my what I was going to do here. So music kind of took the back seat for a long time, almost 4 years. And then
Right.
when I came to Seattle and I started performing from the 28,000 people and 4,000, big crowds, it was 5 or 6 people in bars that didn't know who you were. So it was kind of demotivating a little bit. So in 2007, I started meddling a little bit with how do I record my music. And so,
Mm,
Cubase
mm,
and things like that. But my music wasn't really sounding really good because I didn't know what I was doing. I was just like plugging. I had very, very minimal equipment, but I still continued doing
mhm.
that, still continued playing in bands that, the max audience would be like 50 or 60 people back then. And it wasn't very satisfying. So I started going deeper and
Mm.
deeper into recording. And
Right.
2003, I'd written many songs, over 20 or 30 songs, but I stopped all of that for a long time. So by
Wow.
2013, I decided it's time to get back. And so that was me back in time to do something, but I had to reach back in time to get my foundation out. So I contacted my old band members, Tony Das, amazing guitar player, and Wilfred Demers,
Yeah.
amazing drummer from back in the day. They live in Bangalore right now. And so I took some songs from back then, created some new songs, made this. It has 6 songs only because I couldn't afford more. We put together these things. I laid down all the foundations, and Wilfred put down all the drums. Tony helped me with some guitars, and I had Gus and Steve DeMar on bass. And this album, at that point, I didn't know what I was going to do. I just wanted to create something. And so my wife, Rupali, she told me, instead of doing this at home and always, I would have had version 28 of Stepping Stones, and I'm still not happy with it, right? I've tried it every possible way with every type of drum. And finally, she said, you know what? She went to Robert Lang's studio without asking me and spoke with Robert Lang and said, you know what? My husband loves playing the guitar and recording, but is there a way you could actually teach him something and or give him this access to the studio? That's the studio, yes. And Robert was so gracious. Robert and Tina Lang, his wife, they were so gracious. He invited us to his home and he showed us the whole studio. And he said, you know what? Why don't you come in and I will start a student program. And I was like literally maybe one of the first 2 or 3 students that he put together. And I was there for a whole year. He literally gave me the key to the studio. So I was there from 2013 to 14 and experienced that studio life. And it really changed my perspective of, how to record, how to take care of the details like phase and all of the details that go into recording.
Right.
And in that process, I was also able to record my album and make that a reality. And the truth is that my 1 year, Robert Lang's got over July 2014, and that's when Crystal, my 6-year-old, was born. So a whole new phase in my life started that time. So band stopped. Yeah, that's Crystal. You're super handy, Kanak. That's little Crystal. In fact, she was helping me shoot one of my guitar instrumentals. Yes. She is, ever since 2014, she's been my life revolves around her, like I said. So part of the inspiration to start the studio was also so I can be home more and be with her and also try and keep up with my dreams. So one of the songs on the album is called Caught in a Dream, where the story behind that is more like it was almost 20 years of a day job where I was caught in a dream of dreams are mostly in the nights because we sleep in the night. So I would be working all day and doing what I dream of in the night and staying up all night playing music, recording. So I said I was just caught in that dream and I wanted to change things. So ever since this Crystal was born, I started thinking of ways of how do I make my dream a reality. So. And Back in Time was a stepping stone in that direction.
Yeah.
True.
Well,
And then you got lost. Then you got lost in the wind, and for eternity.
I like that. I hope so. Yes.
And then Crystal Waves came, and then Back in Time happened. There you go.
I like that. I like the way you spun a story around the song titles. Crystal Waves was the last song that I wrote on the album. It was inspired by Crystal, and the way it was actually called Silver Lining before that, which was actually the song that I started writing it in 2002, and I just didn't know where it was going. So I needed a 6th song for the album, and I picked up that one. And then when Crystal was, just before she was born, there were little waves on my wife's stomach, which was when she was kicking. And so we were at the Cactus restaurant, and I said, "Oh, that's the name for the song, Crystal Waves. It's actually the waves on the belly."
Wow.
That's how that song came out, and it was literally
meaningful.
Yes.
Some of that
beautiful.
Thank you.
So
so cool.
I have to mention that I have seen the videos you have posted on your YouTube channel with your daughter Crystal, which I find so adorable and so heartwarming.
Maybe the Lona.
The Lona, and I think it was her first live performance.
Crystals?
No, when she was with Crystal. Yeah. So my question is, does she accompany you in the studio often?
Cool.
She's all the time with me. Actually, especially the last year, she's been literally. I've worked late, so sometimes she's just sleeping in the studio and with me here. She used to, and then we moved that away. But she's all the time with me. In fact, sometimes people ask me, "You've got all this equipment. Why don't you record yourself? Why do you shoot? It's so hard to shoot yourself, even though you have all the equipment, because you need someone to check focus and check frame and start the cameras, and you're like running around. So Crystal's always there, like, yeah,
Yeah.
that looks good. That looks good. And so she's helping them. So most of those videos you see Crystal's the one running the
Wow.
cameras and hitting record, and she loves doing that.
She's
She's a
Yeah,
smart
and
crystal.
girl.
She's
she's now
crystal clear about
started
the
to play a lot.
production. She's
Yes,
crystal clear
that's a
about the
good one.
production.
I love that. I love that.
Gosh, awesome.
Um,
She's a
Uh,
big influence.
absolutely, absolutely. Who is in the school right now? So when you watch this, Crystal, hello.
Yes. Oh yeah.
yeah.
So
Try to talk.
I want to ask you, even though like we have learned a lot, I want to know how did you learn uh, guitar or music? Because did you have to get accustomed to the differences between the Western music styles and the Indian way of learning music? Or did you have to learn and unlearn things when you went to USA?
Oh, honestly, I think the truth is most of what I learned was in the early days until 2003, because
Mhm.
that's when I really played the most. I rely a lot on
Right.
my muscle memory from back then. Unfortunately, a lot of it was bad technique. So, but it's become part of me,
Sure.
and I've made it part of my music. So, as much as I go on stage each time thinking like, "Gosh, I'm not that good," and I make so many mistakes, I'm not confident sometimes, but I
Mhm.
realize that once I'm performing, it's literally every time I'm on that stage, everything, it's like a tunnel vision and everything becomes dark around you.
True.
You're just me and the music. And I'm like, I forget about all of that. Like, can I play? And like, what are the notes I'm playing? And what's my technique? And what's the bad?
Right.
All of that goes away. And at the end, people don't talk about that. People just talk about the experience that they have. So I stopped thinking about, I tried.
True.
So when I came here, I had all these bad techniques and I went to a couple of places to try and unlearn it and try and relearn how
Mm.
do I get better. And I realized it's not worth it. It didn't
Right.
make, because I've spent so many hours in the past. I've been up to 10,
Right.
15 hours a day playing guitar. It's almost, I think it would be worse if I had to unlearn things because then I'll just confuse my own fingers. So I just made it part of my music and now that's who I am. And I'm not
True.
trying to change that anymore. But yeah, I did try to relearn and went to a school
Exactly.
called RMI, but I realized it's not worth it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm. Right.
yeah. So yeah, in terms of
And
the Indian influences, I don't know that there was an Indian influence to the guitar. It was more the influence of my India phase, and that's still what I play.
true.
And but I do know that when I put the guitar down and come back after some time, I seem to be a little better than I was before, and I think it's part of the muscles
Right. Right.
relaxing and getting more accustomed to what you've played. Yeah.
Absolutely. Awesome. Awesome. And I was, we were talking backstage, and I came to know that George doesn't speak any of the Indian languages.
Now, I'm that part of the brain just didn't seem to develop, I guess.
I was so surprised. And so, but he did answer so fantastically that he says, I know only two languages. One is English and other is music. And I guess that is the most amazing answer to that because music is one
Thank
of the
you.
languages that is universal and connects a lot of people, just like Funky and I, you, Raymond, who's watching right now, and so many beautiful people all around the world. So
I
that's
owe it
yeah,
a lot to music because more than a language for communication, it was the problem was when I was growing up, language became one of the things that I was always associated with. Oh my God, he can't speak a language. And in school, I would be good at
true,
other languages, but other subjects, but the language was what was pulling me down. I was in tuitions and people were making fun of me that, oh, you're not an Indian and all of that. So it was quite demotivating. But music, no one could judge. Like you just play, and that was what gave me that it did make a difference.
true.
And that's why I always say that, yes, I don't know any Indian language, but I do know music. And that's what's been my main language of reaching out to everybody.
Excellent. Yeah, the best language to know is music.
Yeah. It
100%.
truly, it truly
Fantastic.
is. Truly is. Well, I have to mention that once again, it's kind of like the same situation with me. I don't. play English music yet. I'm all about, let's say Kiss, Alice Cooper. I don't listen to Bosnian music at all. So a lot of my friends
Mhm.
here, they're like, you're so different than all of us. You just, you don't listen to the same music. You don't talk about the same things as we do. So it makes me, feel a bit out of place when I'm with them. But luckily, I have so many online friends, including Kanak, and, so many of them
Nice.
that, that I can talk about these things with, that we have so much in common, more than the people here. So yeah.
That's
And
nice.
yeah, and I have to mention that we have a question in the comments from Paul.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Um,
Paul, hi, Paul Sutter.
he's asking, do you have any new music coming out?
Paul Sutter, your album's coming out, and I'm looking forward to that. But I'm so the special thing about Verge Studios is that almost every week something new is coming out, which I'm a part of, even if it's a small part of it. Like Paul, I'm going to be working on mastering his album or Raymond's album. So I feel like almost every week there's now music coming out. But I think Paul's more talking about my own music. And yes, I've been planning an album after Back in Time, which is currently in the works. I was
Mhm.
hoping to release it last year, or at least I'm working on it last year, but with all the progress in trying to make the studio a reality, I've been so focused on the studio lately and working
True.
on so many people's music that I feel like I've kept that on the back burner, which is not a good thing. I need to start pulling that project and giving it a little bit more priority. But I do try and focus at least 30 minutes a day on my own music and honing it. But given that it took me 15 years to create Back in Time, God knows how long it's going to take to make this necklace. But I'm just kidding. But I think it's having access to the studio is really good. And but working with so many good musicians, I feel uh, I'm grateful that I'm still making music every day.
Actually, yeah, absolutely.
Raymond, Kurt Cobain to Satriani. Yes, that's so true. Uh,
Yeah. Gosh, that's that's really fun. And I have to mention this album as well. Did this come out? Spirit of the Season.
yes, that album was released actually when Crystal was born. After Back in Time, it was a year later, and
Yeah.
I mean, all of these were stepping stones towards what happened to how Word Studios came along. So there was this flute player, which I want to do my album launch show, August
Hmm.
1st of 2015. And I
Right.
needed a flute player to play on the album because Back in Time had flutes. So I just put into Google
Hmm.
search best flute player in Seattle, and Bevani showed up. So I said, what are the odds if I just reach out to her? I mean, she had like million views on Facebook. I'm like, no way should I say yes, but let me try. And I message her and say, hey, I got this song. Do you want to collaborate? And the next day, she's at my studio, the same, like literally the same week. And I said,
Wow.
it was July 1st. And I said, I'm thinking about having an album launch show. But
Hmm.
I was thinking of August, but literally a month later. And within a month, we got together a whole team. Bevani was there. She played. Louis, my drummer, Jeff Eason, my bass player,
Wow.
Laddie Mitchell came and performed at that show, and so many amazing musicians on
Wow.
that stage. And after that, Bevani, yeah, there's Laddie. Laddie was a studio once. Yes, Laddie's been a
Yeah.
huge influence for me, just like Ray. Laddie, whenever I have questions, I contact Laddie. Uh,
Wow.
uh, but Bevani became a close friend, and we started doing some covers together. And then finally, the back this album was a very interesting. I have a video clip of it too. So Bevani said, "Let's
True.
create an album of originals." And so we had this video running on both of us. Like I was on the keyboard, and she was. So she goes to the restroom, and I'm like playing on the piano, and I'm suddenly started playing this Christmas song. And it was 2 months before Christmas. She comes back, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Hey, Bev, what do you think? Like we do a Christmas album, or maybe a song?" And she's like, why not? So we like stop making the original and she starts playing Oh Holy Night and I'm playing the piano. And that was literally how the album
Holy,
started
yeah.
then and that in that moment. So then we said, we had
True.
blocked 6 days. So we said tomorrow let's just pick 6 songs and just record them. So we did it back to back in 3 hours. She recorded the
Wow.
flute, I recorded the piano, She went back to Minnesota because she was visiting from there. I put the album together the next month and we released it. Yeah, that was a very quick album and happened in the moment.
How cool is that?
Wow.
Wow. I
So
love
from
the
concept
story.
to release was literally a month and a half.
Wow. That's very impressive.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
my question is, so what is the most noticeable difference between the music industry in India and in the US?
Wow.
Personally, because of my music, when I was growing till the age of 26, so which was till 2003, I was in a world where the music which I loved, which was rock, and whether it was 80s rock or whatever, it wasn't that popular in India. It was popular with a select group of people.
True.
And I still remember
That's
trying to
true.
get sponsorship. I was trying to get people. I had this album and I wanted to create it, but nobody believed in it. Like they said, no, English, forget about it. It's not going to work. So it was really hard. So I
Yeah.
literally got a copy of, I don't know which software, but it was back in the day, tried to record, and I didn't know how to record anything back then. So we went to a studio and tried to record our first album, Out of the Dark, my first album. And it was a lot of money and not great results. So a lot of things which made it very hard for a musician, especially when you're trying to go out of the box. Maybe if I knew
True.
an Indian language, I could have written an Indian song, but I didn't know any of that. So my language was what I'd learned from Robert, and which was rock. So it was very hard. But when I came to the US, there was so much more. Now here's the catch: in India, there was a big audience who liked that. So when I would play, there was a people. It was so new for the audience that they would love it. They would like listen to
True.
Brian Adams' Summer of '69 again and again and again. Like, we would be sick of it,
Yeah.
but they loved it. But once I came here, it was a different thing. It was adjusting to the audiences that were saturated with that music. And there was
Yeah.
the concept of industry started to dwindle in terms of anyone being able to support you. You had to figure it out yourself. And that's where
Mhm.
MySpace and YouTube and all started coming in. And one of the first stepping stones away from that or towards me getting back on the horse on the guitar was an album called Shredfest, which was actually, let
Oh
me
yeah.
take a step back. So I told you that I started dabbling around recording in 2007. I recorded Stepping Stones, which is my instrumental, and I put it on MySpace. And this guitar player named Brian Hunsaker, he came and he said, hey, that sounds really good. We're putting together this Shredfest album. A bunch of shredding guitar players are going to put together an album. Do you want to be part of it? So I said, sure. And I gave him the song. And he said, that's a beautiful song, but recorded so badly. I'm going to come and show you how to record. So he comes over and he said, I can't hear the bass, I can't hear the drums. What did you do? So I started from there and I said, okay, at least there was something to work towards. So the music industry, honestly, here became more the music community coming together and encouraging each other
Yeah.
that we can do it ourselves. And that was the first step towards me starting to record with a purpose. There was something to record for an album. We did 3 albums. We played shows together. When Brian, me, and Sergio started a band called Tracks, we played all over, like so many shows. So for me, the music industry is the music community more than anything else. There's no labels, there's no,
True.
promoters and whatever. You do it yourself, but rely on each other. Like Ray and I are tomorrow going to be working on an album. We are the music community at this point, and the industry are other.
Right.
So
Yeah.
amazing.
That's the main difference. Main difference. I guess it teaches you to become independent. Like you,
yes,
but obviously relying on others, being dependent and relying on others is totally different.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah,
I completely agree. I feel like
go ahead.
there's no point waiting for something to happen. If you don't make it happen, it's not going to happen.
True.
We got
Exactly.
there was a Journey tribute band. We made a Journey tribute band in 2008. We practiced for a year and a half. We didn't play one show. I knew every song
Right.
on the guitar. We did not play one because they were waiting for this magical moment to happen. It's not going to happen until you go and put yourself out there.
True. True. And the band was called Triax, if I'm not wrong, with Brian and Sacker.
Try. Yes, Brian and Sergio. Yes, Brian is an amazing guitar player. He had this album,
Wow. Yeah.
which a big influence on me too. Brian is a big influence in my life.
Wow. Yeah. And Well, as an Indian, I have to ask you now. This is not a music question. Uh, are you a fan of cricket?
Uh, Honestly, the truth, for some reason, I'm always the underdog. I picked soccer, football back then, football. So I was the football player. But and the main reason is because
Cool.
whenever I was playing cricket, you get a bat, and if you get out, you sit and wait for something to happen for a long, long time. You're just sitting
Exactly.
and waiting on the side. And then when you're on the field, you get a ball, but then
Yeah.
otherwise you're just waiting for the ball to come to you. But in soccer, you can just go whenever you want to just play. So you're playing the whole time. So that was
See,
one of the reasons why I tend to like it more.
best explained because that's what I am into. I'm not much of a cricket guy.
I love watching the
Exactly.
game. I used to rather. I used to love watching it for especially the end. It was always good to watch the end.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Indian cricket scenario explained. But you know why I asked that question? Because you performed at the Chinnaswamy
Oh,
Stadium here, which was like a huge, massive audience, right?
so I lied. I
So
did get a bigger audience again. Yes, it was 40,000 people there.
Yeah.
40,000 people, yeah. And well, this is the stadium where currently the Indian
uh,
Premier League is
it
happening.
was a dream come true. Yes.
And this is where George performed as well, the 40,000 audience.
Impressive.
Thank you. I feel like it's one of those things where you just stick with what you do for a long time, and over time, things come to you versus you have to run to it. So towards the end of Mixed Fruit Jam, the last couple of years, it was I would get mails. Hey, do you want to play here? And I loved my band so much because I would literally call them that evening, and the next day we're on a
Right,
bus or a van. But back then we didn't have money for planes, so we were like driving across the country, playing shows, which just
right.
in a span of over a day. So uh, yeah,
True,
so Chinnaswamy Stadium was one of those magical moments.
absolutely. And you know, how was it meeting your heroes and all these people? Because I can relate to very much. We grew up watching them on TV and whatnot. Because I remember watching Crossroads. I guess that was a
Eric
tour that
Clapton?
Steve Vai did.
Oh, Steve Vai.
No,
Steve Vai.
the Steve Vai one, and I remember watching that on TV and whatnot, and I'm sure you must have watched a lot of them on TV as well. But how was it meeting people like Andy Timmons and you know who else, Tony McAlpine, and performing with them, and even
Oh yeah,
Marty Friedman?
Marty
Yeah,
Friedman, Tony McAvoy. The most I think the common denominator among all of these is to realize that everyone at the end of the day is doing their best, doing their magic in their own way. They've just done it their
true,
way, stuck with it. Everyone's gone through the hardest of times, and they're just reaping the benefits of toil and labor and passion and talent. And so when you meet them, they are the humblest of people. They welcome you onto their stage, and that makes me humbled and blessed. And
right,
I always think that when we look at them on TV, you think of them as, oh my God, these people you can never reach. But when you actually talk with them, Andy Timmons, for example, we were at NAM the other 2 years ago, and I was like, is this the same person who's
wow,
on all these albums and on TV? It's like so down to earth. Larry Mitchell, he's like, I still remember the first time I met Larry Mitchell. I saw him. I said, "Oh, can I help you take your gear off stage because you just finished playing?" And he's like, "Sure, sure.
yeah,
Can you put it at the back there?" He's actually allowing me to carry his stuff. And then I said, I have the same guitar processor. And he says, "Really? Do you want me to show you how to use it?" I
yeah.
said, "Sure thing." And this is just after the show. He gets into my car, drives to my house, spends 2 hours with me. This is like at 9 in the night, leaves at 1 in the morning, explaining to me, and he didn't even ask me for anything. He just said, like, "Hey, I just want to talk music with you." And that's how, and it's
Wow.
been 5 years with Larry now, so many shows, and he's come and played at my album launch show. He flew in just for that show. He's on my
Wow,
album too.
yeah.
He played a song on my album.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's the magic of the
Yeah,
language of music.
yeah. So the meeting all these so-called stars is that at the end of the day, they're just as there's Larry. They are the most
Yeah,
amazing people. They're stars because they're so down to earth and humble and talented. They focus on the music, and everything else is not important. I think that's the reason why they're stars.
True, true. Yeah, it was a dream come true moment for us when I was well, we had Jeremy Colson on, and we had Mr. Alex Dupuy on, both of
Oh
them
wow.
who work with Steve Vai. So
I saw that.
this was so fun. Yeah, this was so fun because Jeremy's episode was planned, and the show time has we've gone overboard the show time, and Jeremy isn't there still, and we are
Wow.
freaking out like, where is Jeremy? Like, what happened? What's the problem? And people are waiting in the comments.
Oh my God.
And I got a video call from Jeremy on Messenger. He's like, "Hey, Kanak, I'm sorry. This and this is the problem. So can we schedule it to the earliest date?
Oh my
Reschedule it."
God.
What? And we rescheduled it like day after
Yeah, on
the
Halloween.
shooting.
It was Halloween.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Halloween.
yeah, and it was like so cool. And he was like, "Hey man, sorry, do you want me to make a video or something that I
Wow.
couldn't come today and want to say sorry to people?" Like, it's okay,
My
Jeremy, you don't need to
God.
say sorry. You don't need to say sorry, but you
I
can,
think that's
if
what
you
makes them
want
the
to, you
stars.
can.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can post a video if you want to. Like, we have rescheduled. The guy was like, "Hey, I'm sorry," and he literally did a video. He sent me the video.
Wow. That's
And
amazing.
when I got off the call, I was like, did I just miss a call? And did I just chat with Jeremy Colson or Steve Vai?
Steve Vai, oh my God. Now I can imagine. I feel like that. I feel
Right,
also, even right now, when you bring back all these, because I haven't actively thought of all these people in the long time, but now when you bring back the names like Tony Mac, I'm like, did this all really happen? Was it a dream?
Yeah.
Because it was like 2 years
right,
ago. So you're right. I know what that
right.
feels like. But
Absolutely, absolutely. It's such a fantastic moment. When you're living the moment, it's not that whatever glorified moment, because you're still living in the moment. So Jeremy
yes,
or any person is just as good as any other person. But when the conversation is done, when you go back home or you sit back and then you imagine, yeah, okay, this was Jeremy Colson
did
I
this really
spoke to,
happen?
or this,
Yes.
Yes.
yeah, did this really happen?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's
Yeah,
truly fun.
Raymond really says that, like, it's the journey that makes us who we are today. That's what Raymond said, and that's the truth.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I
Mm,
I
mean, after this episode ends, we're gonna be like, "Holy crap, we had George on the show!"
Oh
So
God, Spunky, you're too kind. Thank
absolutely,
you. I think it'll be
absolutely.
likewise. I think I'm so happy to be here, and like I said in the beginning, I feel like I've known you guys forever. It's so good.
Oh,
oh,
our
thank you.
honor,
And to
our
come back to
honor.
what Raymond said about the journey,
Sure.
I feel like quite often people say, "Oh my God, I'm successful today," or "I'm a failure today," and I don't think that's important. I don't think what you are at a specific point of time is important. It's what you've done over a span of time. It's like you look at all
Mm,
your successes, and I wouldn't call them failures, but things that you haven't done so well, and then as long as you've done some good stuff, I think you're okay. You don't have to call yourself,
true,
"Hey, I'm not." It's like right now, I'm not playing actively as a guitar player on stages, but that doesn't mean I'm a failed guitar player or anything. It just means like
Yeah.
I'm focusing on something else. So yeah,
true.
so I don't look at success or failure as a momentary thing. I look at life as a journey and an aggregate.
Yeah. Uh,
Absolutely, absolutely.
well, I have a lot of questions left to ask you, but
Yeah,
since we've been on for an hour already, I'm gonna ask you only one. So, Kanak, if
cool.
you have any more questions you want to ask before, go ahead.
But I have to put up people's question here, which is from Anders and Fox and Furter. Let me just put up. So Fox and Furter is asking, is there a genre of music that you once hated but now enjoy and listen to?
I would say that I hated any kind of music, but there was music that I would not think that I was capable of playing or and enjoy listening to. Yeah, I mean, for example, jazz was one thing that I always couldn't understand back in the day, and I was intimidated by it. In fact, I had a piano player named Marcus Daniel who would try to teach me Fly Me to the Moon. And I was trying, and I'm like, this is just too hard. And so I wouldn't hate it, but it was just that I didn't understand it. And I loved what I heard. But now bands like Joe and Penny come into the studio and they play jazz. And I'm like, God, if I could only, I just love the sound. I listen to smooth jazz all the time. So I wouldn't say hated, but it's something that I hadn't listened to a lot before because I was intimidated by it. But now I listen to a lot more of that. Yeah.
Awesome. And Anders asks, is there a piece of gear you've lost and regret losing?
Trying to think. I wouldn't say and regret losing.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly, not. I haven't lost. No. But it reminds me of a case where that guitar which I got in '96. I remember that. It was on stage and a band, I was supposed to go on after the band. And this guy had this long guitar strap attached to it. And he's walking off stage. The guitar strap goes around my guitar stand. And I mean, not the strap, the cable. And the guitar falls, boom. And everyone in the audience goes, oh my God, what happened? So I felt like I almost lost that guitar because it went bang on the ground.
Yeah.
But thankfully it was all good.
Right.
So if I had lost that guitar, that would have been the most crushing day of my life. But yeah, my guitar is the most precious thing for me, and it's an Ibanez which I got it 25 years ago. Yeah, and I would never want to lose it.
Nice.
So yeah.
My last
okay, go
question,
ahead.
my last question for you is if you could share some advice or words of wisdom to your friends and the people in the audience, what would that be?
Yeah, there are two things that come to my mind. The one is, especially because of late, people have been telling me, you're living your dream. And oh my God, you're so lucky that you're living your dream. And I always say, you know what, I've always been living the dream. It's just in different capacities of what that meant. I've always been playing my guitar. I've always been recording in some form, playing on stage. So I feel like right now, yes, I'm working in a studio, which was a dream I always had. But I feel like we can always live our dreams in whatever capacity, anytime, and we don't have to wait. So one thing is, don't wait to live your dreams. Just live it in whatever capacity you can. That's the first thing. And the other one is that things seem to go downhill sometimes. You feel like, oh my God, what am I doing? Why did I do this? And I always feel just stick it out because someone special is going to come by. You never know when. Someone special is going to come into your life and change things and make things better. So always live your dream, do your best to keep that going. And even if things go down, there's always someone special that's going to come in and change your world.
Absolutely. Wow.
Wise words.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Wise words. And thank you so much. Well, we have, a lot of questions still in the store. So we're going to have to invite you for part 2. And since you have a session now, since you have a session now, we are letting you off. But before we let you go, we want to share your socials with our audience who is watching right now. Please go follow George on Facebook and Instagram @gv.verge, and on Twitter, contact_George. And obviously, you can find more info about George and his studios on georgeverghese.com. And well, it has been such a pleasure that you came on today, and thank you for accepting our invite. And it's such a pleasure.
I want to thank you guys so much for having me.
Yeah,
thank you.
It was I think a really fun one with you, which I feel I've walked back down memory lane and relived so many wonderful moments. I sincerely appreciate what you've done for me and what you're doing for so many other people. And
thank you.
Thank you. It's our honor. It's our pleasure. So yeah.
Yes, absolutely. That means a lot to us. And thank you once again. And we're gonna let you off now, but you're coming back for
thank
part
you to
2.
everyone who watched the show. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I want to say thank you to everyone who came and watched, Paul and Kelsa and Raymond and everyone else there, and Anders. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you all for tuning in today. And here am I, Kanak. That's Funky signing off with George Verghese. And take care. Love, peace
Thank
to
you.
all, and keep rocking. Ciao for
Ciao for now.
now. See ya.